Howdy, and welcome to Mo's World, the baseball podcast. Yep, another baseball podcast. Here we talk about baseball like a few friends sitting at the bar. We're excited to bring you our latest episode. If you enjoy the podcast, spread the word to your friends. Well, in Season 2, Episode 40, we're going to recap the World Series a little bit and finally talk about the final stats of this year's title of the Imploding Bullpens. Our last podcast, unfortunately, didn't include Game 6 and 7, but what a series it was. The Blue Jays hit. Shit, I'm not used to teams hitting in the regular season and then actually coming through in the postseason to be that team once again. So kudos to them, and especially the postseason that Vlad had. Impressive. But with all that said, here we are looking at back-to-back World Series winner, the Dodgers. They proved how much they wanted this title by just being the Dodgers. Great balanced lineup of professional hitters and a starting staff that friggin' stepped up when needed. Great series, I thought. Let's recap, though, where we stand and how well the starters performed in 2025. We're going to look at the top 5 and bottom 5 teams in starter length. And you know what? It's no surprise. The top 5 teams from the top to the bottom, the first one's the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, they got the most out of their starters. They got 929 innings out of their starters, which was 5.74 innings per starter. They also had a nice, decent 3.53 ERA. Now, the Phillies leaned on them all year. Next team was the Cleveland Guardians. Their starters threw 888 innings, and they were second with 5.48 innings per starter. And they also had a nice, decent 3.86 ERA. The next team may surprise you, the Arizona Diamondbacks, with 885 and 2/3 innings per team. They got 5.46 innings per starter. And their ERA was a little high. It's overall at 4.29. But, they had a shit bullpen, so that kind of affected that. The Seattle Mariners were on the top 5. They had 882.1 innings per team, and they got 5.45 innings out of their starter with a 3.97 ERA. And last but not least, of the top teams' innings per starter were the Kansas City Royals. Now, you've heard me harp on them all year and give them a lot of slack, thinking that they were going to make something of their season. And this is why. 874 innings, 5.4 innings per starter. They had a great starting staff. Too bad they couldn't hit for shit this year. Now, the bottom 5 teams really shouldn't surprise you. The Chicago Shit Sox had only 758 and 2/3 innings. They only got 4.68 innings out of their starter with a 4.39 ERA. The Colorado Rockies, I think, just want to forget all about this past year. They only had 776 innings out of their starter, 4.79 innings they got from them with a whopping 6.65 ERA. Now, here's a few teams that may surprise you with the bottom 5 getting out of their starters. The Los Angeles Dodgers, with only 783 1/3 innings per team, they got only 4.83 innings per starter. A lot different, we'll talk about, than what they did in the World Series, right? And the New York Mets, in their imploding year, they went from one extreme to another. 796 innings. They only got 4.91 innings per starter with a 4.13 ERA. And the last team, the Milwaukee Brewers, yeah, they relied so heavily on their bullpen. They only got 4.85 innings per starter, and that was their doing. So most teams improved from the first quarter of the season, and the one that improved the most was the Orioles. They sucked in the first part of the season, and they were just written off because of that. Too bad it was too little too late, right? So what do these stats really mean? In the case of the Phillies, it was devastating for their playoff run. They had injuries which impacted their starters, and their hitters stopped hitting. That equates to the end of the road in the playoffs. And you can say the same thing about the Guardians, who relied heavily on their starters. Seattle, they couldn't ride their starters in the playoffs like they did in the regular season. Same results. End of playoffs. Now, once again, the Royals proved, as I said, they had a pretty shit season in producing an offense, but their starting pitching was pretty impressive all season. As far as the bottom five in starter depth, well, the White Sox and Rockies, well, it makes sense not to even go there. The Dodgers, though, struggled all season. And, having healthy starters, we saw it was September by the time they had their act together. But they were smart because they knew getting healthy for the postseason was the main goal. The Mets, as we said, self-destructed. Many questions about this team in my book, from personnel to front office to manager. Now the Brewers, wow, really? This one surprised me since they kicked ass all year long, right? They were one of the few teams in 2025 that did not really struggle with their bullpen. But they better be prepared for a change next season, because that won't happen 2 years in a row. Their bullpen is going to be shit next year. Now, blown saves. These guys, they just want to forget about this past year. Tanner Scott of the Dodgers. Wow. He had 23 saves, but he also blew almost half of them. 10 blown saves, leading that lovely stat in Major League Baseball. Another player who really had a shit season, and I'm a fan of his. I don't know. I think he's going to bounce back, but he just completed blowing 9 saves. Ryan Helsley of the Mets with 21 saves and 9 blown saves. Now, here's another name that's pretty common on this list of blown saves, and that's Greg Weissett from the Red Sox. He had 4 saves, but he blew 9. So the Red Sox struggled early in the season with their bullpen, but they bounced back. Another one, we saw him in the World Series. We saw him in the playoffs. I'm not impressed by him. Never have been. Jeff Hoffman of the Blue Jays. Yeah, he had 33 saves, but he blew 7 saves, and I don't know. He had a shit season, I think. Another one that's always on this list, Kyle Finnegan of the Tigers. Who keeps giving this guy the opportunity to close? 24 saves with 7 blown saves. So these players led in individual blown saves. But what teams were done in by the bullpen the most? In 2024, the White Sox had the most blown saves in the past 5 years with 37. So did any team top that shitty bullpen? Not quite, as the Angels led the majors list this year with 34 blown saves. Once again, this is only a partial description of a shitty bullpen. So let's talk about this. The Angels had 34 blown saves. Diamondbacks was second with 29. Tampa Bay Rays also had 29. The Rangers had 29. Next up, the Red Sox had 28. The Mets with 28. And then we saw the Dodgers with 27. The Phillies had 27. And then we had the Pirates with 26, the Seattle Mariners with 26, and that pretty much rounded out the top 10. Where was your favorite team? My favorite teams are middle to bottom third as well. The Atlanta Braves were 21st out of 30 teams, blowing 21 games. And the Yankees were 21st as well, blowing 21. Who's the best two teams? Struggled getting that out, right? San Diego Padres. Yeah. We've talked about the bullpen, and they only blew 16 saves. They were successful 75% of the time. And the Astros, they didn't fuck up many games either. They only blew 17. So, two impressive stats. Makes you look to see what it's going to be next year. Now, the best bullpens, and the way we're saying this is, these are teams that from the seventh inning on, what did they give up? You know, we saw a lot of teams this year where the starters are only going 4 or 5 innings, and it's a 2-1 game. And then by the 8th inning, it's an 8-5 game or something like that. The bullpens are just freaking giving out runs like candy. Well, the San Diego Padres, they led Major League Baseball as their bullpen only gave up 3.44 runs per game from the 7th inning on. San Francisco Giants had another good bullpen. In 51.4 games, they only gave up 3.48 runs per bullpen. And the Pittsburgh Pirates, surprisingly, only gave up 3.93 runs per bullpen game as well. The Chicago Cubs, they were right in there too, giving up 3.93 runs after the 7th inning with their bullpen. And in the Milwaukee Brewers, their bullpen gave up 4.2 runs per bullpen. Blah, blah. I'm sorry, I can't speak. Per bullpen. Oh, shit. Okay, so the worst bullpens from the 7th inning on, once again, no drum roll needed, nothing like that. The Washington Nationals, they gave up 6.19 runs after the 7th inning. The Rockies, they gave up 6 runs after the 7th inning. The Diamondbacks, 5.42 runs per bullpen visit, which was crazy. And the Angels, they gave up 5.12 runs after the 7th inning. And then finally, the Detroit Tigers gave up 5.04 runs after the 7th inning. You know, and right next to them was the team that I was abusing all season long, was the Yankees. The Yankees gave up 4.88 runs after the 7th inning. Now, those are 2 playoff teams, though, in the bottom 5, the Tigers and the Yankees. And they struggled, right? What did they struggle with? That their bullpens were going to implode at any moment. I mean, you can't give up 5 runs from your bullpen after the 7th inning and expect to win a playoff game. That's fucking ridiculous, right? So you got to wonder, in the playoffs, how did they, did they actually surprise anybody? The Yankees and the Tigers bullpen sucked, yet they survived it. As long as they hit, they won. And we know that stopped in the playoffs. So many teams the team that wins the World Series, they get copied. But I think the back-to-back World Series wins by the Dodgers are unique. I do not see many teams spending $400 million in salaries like the Dodgers. But maybe, and this is only maybe, that they will copy the plan that Dave Roberts had to let his starters friggin' pitch. That is all we can hope for in 2026. Pitchers going more than 6 innings on a regular basis. Now, I'm saying this because I don't think that the bullpens are going to get any better miraculously next year. They're just going to be interchanged. So before we end, I got to say, what did Major League Baseball expect, too, about getting into bed with gambling? With Cleveland Guardians pitchers Luis Leandro Ortiz and Emmanuel Clase getting indicted on throwing games, I bet this investigation is far from over. I bet this investigation. Get it? So Major League Baseball sold out to gambling sites as a partner. They created this farce So now the morons who decided to allow this connection is shitting. Yeah, fucking idiots, I think. Also, hey, the awards were in progress this week. What did you think? Monday, we saw the Rookie of the Year awards. And, seriously, you can debate this all you want, but how can anyone but Nick Kurtz of the A's in the American League and Drake Baldwin of the Braves in the National League not win? On Tuesday, we saw the Manager of the Year awards. A repeat? Maybe? Pat Murphy of the Brewers? Well, and the winner in the American League is Stephen Voigt of the Cleveland Guardians. Very appropriate. National League winner is Pat Murphy of the Milwaukee Brewers for the repeat. And the Cy Young Award was Paul Skeens in the National League. Absolutely. Well, Pirate fans better enjoy having Skeens because he'll be out of there as soon as he hits the open market. In the American League, Tarek Skubal. Absolutely. No doubt about it. Best pitcher in baseball right now. Alrighty. Well, we know what it came down to. Thursday, just yesterday, they announced the MVP awards. Now, everyone, we know that this was a good race between Judge and Cal Raleigh. But look, MVP, the true meaning is most valuable player to the team. Now, Cal Raleigh had an awesome year, but Judge really was more important to the Yankees. The Yankees do not win 87 games without Aaron Judge in the lineup. It's as simple as that. So I'm all for that one. The National League Award went to Shohei Ohtani, who now is a 4-time winner as he completed another unbelievable year. So Judge picked up his 3rd trophy, and, he had the best stats in baseball and another dominant year. So you know what? I'm all for most of these awards this year. They all hit the spot. So I think that's a wrap for today. Thanks for joining us for Season 2, Episode 40 of Mo's World, the Baseball Podcast. We are now in our off-season schedule of new episodes every other Friday. Each episode lasts approximately 20 minutes. We appreciate your support and encourage you to share the podcast with your friends. Our next episode will be released in 2 weeks on Friday, November 28th. We wish everyone has a very happy Thanksgiving, and we look forward to seeing you then. In the meantime, ask yourself, whose world is it? It's Mo's World.